Good morning. I think it's morning for nearly everybody on the call. My name is Mickey Ferrance, and I'm a content manager here at Bonita Soft. And this week, I get to be your host for the Bonita Live Tour 2019. So, welcome to the first session of our first live tour. This is an interesting new format we're trying with a live interview with me and with our guest today. He's online with us now, and that's Yu-Sun Wang. And Yu-Sun is the lead digital capability manager at Bristol Myers Squibb. He's going to talk with me today about how Bristol Myers Squibb has applied digital transformation to processes in drug discovery and how this has allowed their scientists and their analysts to focus on research instead of focusing their time on manual and administrative tasks. So whether you're in pharma or not, there's definitely some things that are applicable to digital transformation in other industries as well. What we will do now is I'm going to bring in Yusun, and let's talk a little bit about what you have done at Bristol Myers Squibb. So Yusun, let's start with the just the very beginning. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Bristol Myers Squibb does and in drug discovery and what your group does for them?
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Yu-Sun Wang. I'm working as the lead digital capability manager in Bristol Myers Squibb. As you know, Bristol Myers Squibb is a pharmaceutical company and they're always working with our patients to fight disease for their lives. So I'm in the research operation group, and we always want to help our scientists to improve their productivity in their work.
So, what were some of the challenges that your team had to face when you were looking at transforming your processes, your manual
Right.
processes?
Yeah. So there are many different labs in a typical pharma research environment. So in each lab, scientists work with their expertise in the different domains to find a solution for a disease study. Therefore, scientists need to collaborate and work with other scientists in the different labs. The challenge they face are not only doing their daily lab work, but also to spend significant time to do administration work, such as send email, create an Excel report, and metrics, and send data entry in the different places, and so on. So for us, we just try to help our scientists to spend more time in study instead of administration work.
So, what kind of things what kind of manual processes were your scientists doing? I remember you saying something about them actually having to share drawings with the analysts. How did that back and forth work between the scientists and the analysts?
Right. So, so as I mentioned, right, we are in the research operation group. We want to help our scientists to work more productive and effective. As you see the diagram, you can see the scientists have to do a lot of work in their lab. So, in order, so we built a BPM platform based on the Bonita BPM to do the lab process digital transformation for helping our scientists to focus on drug study instead of to do these tedious works. And so in the second section, you can see that we used to have a research lab using the manually process for their daily work. This lab received around 700 requests from the chemists using paper form every day. And the analyst has to read and enter the data to their electronic notebook. They have to write email or call a chemist when they complete the experiment. And think about the handwriting paper form.
Uh-huh.
Right. So it's very easy. You can sometimes it's a challenge for the analyst to read the handwriting data because the handwriting, right? Sometimes two is 8 or 9 is so. It causes a lot mistake between the communication between the chemist and analyst. So it may take a lot of time back and forth between the chemist and analyst.
So if the analyst
So
couldn't read the data, they would have to call the chemist to get them to
correct,
clarify what they had done. So there's
yeah,
communication happening back and forth about something that's been already transmitted.
correct. And even they complete the experiment, they have to call the chemist. And the chemist, if they don't understand if they don't find their information, they have to call back again. So there's a lot of time just doing this kind of back and forth communication.
Mhm.
So after we help this lab to do the process digital transformation, instead of the chemist to write the request information on the paper form, both the chemist and the analyst use a web form provided by the process web application. So right now they can read information very clear through the web form because they are reading the same data from the same places. The automated process will send the notification to the right person who needs to work on in each process step. So after several process automation improvement, analysts does not need to go to web form to complete their experiment process. The process will check the file repository to find the result report and complete the process automatically. And for the top managers, they can find the real-time operation metrics from a visualization tool tap on the KPI database. So now the scientists are very productive and happy after this digital transformation. And it saves around about 5 FT every year, which equal to $1 million a year.
That's a significant savings. And I'm sure that the scientists and the analysts both appreciate the fact that now they don't have to spend all this time trying to decipher the information that's supposed to be going back and keep checking to see if analysis has been completed. They get an automatic notification. If I understood
Correct.
what you were saying correctly.
Yes. Yeah. And this is our first lab process digital transformation in our BPM platform. And after that, we have automated the other 17 process in our production environment. And right now we have about more than 2,000 users globally to leverage our BPM platform to do their daily job. And so for each process, they can save many cost and the time for their
Uh,
work.
and are these people, you have a very large company, these people are located around the world, no?
Correct. Yeah. So that means we have to support our users 24 hours. So, yeah. So
So you said that this process that we're talking about right now was your first process. And
correct.
how long have you been has it been in use at BMS?
Right. Okay. So we have been using Bonita since 2013,
Mhm.
and we leverage the Bonita as the infrastructure to build a BPM platform in our research environment. And since we need to integrate with many applications and data source in our environment, we have built our own business logical layer top on the Bonita engine.
Right.
So we always want to use many all the features out of the box on the Bonita. However, sometimes they don't have the features for our requirement. But the good thing from Bonita BPM is that they have a very robust engine APIs for us to build our implementation if need. So and that also allows us to build our BPM platform to provide generic features for our BPM projects instead of building the process app from scratch each time.
Mm.
So each project will be only focused on design, how their UI needed to collect the data, how their process to run their business logic, and then leverage the rest of the generic function provided by our BPM platform to do the work. So that can save a lot of time to build application from the scratch.
Right. So you're using the engine. You've integrated the engine and built your own user interface on top, and you're using the Bonita engine as an orchestration tool
Correct.
among all of
Yes.
the equipment and the inputs that the various scientists and analysts need to use. Did I understand
Correct.
that right?
Correct. Yeah. So the more the objective in our prepared platform is to orchestrate the different environment. I mean, in the different devices applications in our lab environment, because you think about that. Some scientists they used to using their LIMS system, which is lab system to do their work.
Mm.
So if we just using create the other web form for them to fulfill their data, that means they double their work. So
That
the
doesn't
user
help
may
them.
over the time, yeah, they don't help. They just add more work for them.
That's more.
So the
Mhm.
way we implement the orchestration is that during the process, each human step, right? Because BPM process is involved the humans. So each human step we can, if the end user have their own devices or application already, we can integrate with their device or application instead build a form. Or sometimes the end user they don't have a form, then we just build a form for them, and that means that use in the user's interface step, you don't you can have different uh, forms. I mean the user interface for the end user to interact with your process. So that's where we help us to orchestrate from different labs and reduce the time. I mean, so the users want to, so we can make user to more productive.
So you started this in 2013, you said. So you were integrating the Internet of Things before we had an Internet of Things. Your things being
Correct.
lab equipment and analysis equipment and so forth.
Yeah, because think about that. I mean, one scientist, you can see the diagram. They can handle so many stuff. If they can just use in their environment, their current device or applications, and
Hmm.
they were very happy to use it to, I mean, for the process. Otherwise, more work, the user have more resistance to using to leverage your process.
Yeah, I think you put your finger on another key aspect of success in implementing something like digital transformation, which is you're really thinking about the users and what the users need. They don't want to do a second set of inputs. They want to just work with the machines and the equipment and so forth that they're already familiar with. So you really thought about them and put them at the heart of what you were doing. I think
Right.
that's an
Yeah.
important aspect of
So
success.
correct. So we have some other use cases that are more like maybe we haven't implemented yet, but since we have the many about 10 different processes in our lab environment, so some requests which will be chemist or any scientist, they have to submit 4 or 5 different requests to different groups. So so right now we have more process in. So when we review all our processes, we find out that actually they are all related. So instead of so we start a project to do some kind of orchestration of the process, which means that the requester or the requester can just submit a study, I mean, which
Mhm.
a request in a main process. So when in the maybe the third or the other step or the whole process, they can break down to the other sub process to assign the request to different current process or the lab has already.
Hmm.
Instead, they have to enter all the same information 4 or 5 times. So
Right.
that right. So they when they start, they can say, okay, I need to do this kind of study, and downstream of the process, in some step, the scientist can decide, say, oh, in this step, I need to put these couple samples to this lab for do some analyze, and these samples should go to the second lab for experiment. The same
Hmm.
thing. So this way, instead of they have to restart all the form, in that step, the UI form will provide the option already. Say they can group the different samples to different sub process, and
So
the matrix will
these
show you right. So the matrix will show the scientist what's the end to end, how they handle their sample for their study.
So because you've integrated so many, what did you say, 17 processes?
Yeah, we have
17,
17
17
process.
applications.
Right,
You've been doing this since 2013, so you have quite a bit of experience with building on the Bonita platform. So, can I ask you if you might have some advice that you can offer to other companies or other IT teams that might be thinking about digitizing some of the processes they have?
right. So yeah, my advice is start simple and easy, happy process, and then you iterate that it will improve the process. I heard most BPM project failed is because they make too complicated when they start.
Uh-huh.
So so that's in the if you think about the BPM process, you always have something scenario plus happy pace first. Then you start to put some kind of a different scenario in. And the other advice is don't build everything from scratch. Leverage the current application your users using currently. So you instead you build everything, then you just leverage, integrate, and decouple. So we have a use case that we have a process integrate with a vendor in for the links, and we using messaging queue, AWS SQS, right? And they using the queue to talk to each other because in each lab, the link system they may have their own workflow, it's lab workflow. So so we use the Bonita process as a main request workflow, and when in the certain step they needed to push the data to the LIMS system. So we therefore we instead of we direct call then the vendor, we using a message to communication between these two with our LIMS system. So after 2 years, we want to replace this vendor limbs with other limbs. So the good thing is since we decouple, we don't direct connect to this limb or vendor. So even we replace a new vendor limbs, we still can use our current process because we have defined what the data between the vendor and our main process. So we just need to twist our data model and the data set. So that's the advice I have to, I mean, don't build scratch from scratch,
Hmm.
leverage whatever you have already.
So you're saying that you didn't start with 17 interlocking process. You started with something simple and built out from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So even yeah. So yeah. So keep simple. Like that's my
Mhm.
that's advice.
Start simple and build out.
Yeah.
How about reuse?
Correct.
You started talking about reusability,
Mm-hmm.
reusing the modules that you've built. What kind of reusability, other things have you built into your system that are reusable?
Right. So like I mentioned, we have a BPM platform in our environment. So BPM platform means that we all the project we're using this platform as start point. Just like think about you have app iPhone, you have iOS, and you have many different apps in to leverage your iOS. So which means that you all the generic function provided for iOS or our BPM platform, each project can leverage it, and they just focus on their business logic, form, and process. And every time a new project have a special features that can, we always design it more generic because we want to build the feature on the platform instead of build for the project, which means that think about from when we start, we only have one and two process. Our platform is very simple and means
Mhm.
less function. But after 6 years, every time we have a new project coming in, we build a new feature, and the feature will be automatic part of the platform. And all the application project applications can leverage it as well. So just like iOS, right? You have a new enhancement, you automate apply to all of your apps.
It's awesome. This is it's super interesting to hear what you've done there, especially since I personally got to see it just as it was starting. So to see how much work you guys have done and how useful this has become for you is super interesting. So I really appreciate you sharing this with us today. I want to ask you though, before we finish our session today, if there's anything else that you would like to add.
Yes. So yeah, I would add one more like a comment, I mean, or advice here is that the
Mm.
BPM project always involve a human with role-based process. So when you design a BPM project, make sure you use the different actor views to review your requirement because it's
Mm-hmm.
different from regular software development. So I think the objective of the BPM project is to make sure the right person to do the right task at the right time.
Very well put. And it's very interesting to hear this because when we talk about technology, when we talk about information systems, we talk about technology, we don't talk about people as much. And you're putting, like I said earlier, you're talking about the people first. I think that makes a huge difference in success, as I said. So thank you very much, Yu-Sun. I really appreciate you taking the time with us to share your experience this morning. Cool. So the first question is for you, Yu-Sun, and it's about
Mhm.
embedding the engine. And the question
Mhm.
is, what did you find it difficult to embed the Bonita engine instead of creating the entire application on Bonita?
Yeah, so in our case, I think the good thing is Bonita Engine have very robust APIs. So I think it's not if you understand the APIs and you understand what you need, so you can just create your own logic. For example, in our case, we have called application concept in our BPM platform, and so we just uh, so using our own logic to bundle the process because you think about if you using the Bonita portal, for example, and if you have 5 different processes, right? So based on the user roles, you log into the Bonita portal, and you find out that you maybe one there are 5 processes, and each process maybe have different version of the process. From the end user perspective, they may not know which one should they have to start. So that's the way we using our own logic to bundle. I mean to only show latest version of a process in our own portal, which we build a custom portal for in our concept. So this way, from the end user perspective, they don't see uh, they can direct to find out which version they can start for that process. And the and when we kick off, execute the task or start a process, we just leverage the API provided by uh, Bonita. So we're using the Java library, and our platform is using the Spring platform. And so I think it's for me, since we have been working for many years, so it's very straightforward to leverage their API if you just want to run your process. And in the meantime, we're still using the Bonita Studio to build a process. Then we deploy it.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is for Delphine. The question is, can I do custom developments with the community edition of Bonita?
Yes, of course you can. Yeah, well, basically, with community edition, you won't have as much as wizards as you would like. But for example, you can still use REST API extensions. You can develop custom widgets. You also can do custom developments. But be careful when you do that. Try to respect best practices of the use of Bonita, and read carefully the Java doc, for example, if you are using API methods.
Okay, thank you. Yu-Sun, question for you.
Yeah.
I like this one. Did you have citizen developers on your team?
Yes. So actually, we have a BPM research BPM team, and we have I call the process a BPM process engineer to build a process. So the engineer will be working with our business analyst and the end user, and based on the requirement we use in the Bonita Studio uh, to transfer the workflow or the process into the BPM 2.0. So this way, because this way we can very easily to communicate with our uh, end user or BAs, and this developer engineer will be accumulate more and more experience when they do the project. So this way this way when we working with any BPM projects, we can provide the right information and implement the right design.
So it sounds like what you just said is that you have somebody who's actually specialized in communicating between the two,
Correct.
the analysts and the developers.
Yes. Actually, they are the developers as well. So
They're
it's more
also a
like,
developer.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, it's a like kind of engineer. So they are developer also. They know how to build a process, and they know the Java, so they know how to build uh, services or any connectors if need.
Thank you. This one I think is for Delphine. What version of Bonita is available in the cloud?
We start with 7.9 in the cloud, and we are going to upgrade each maintenance version.
Great, which just came out, so
Yeah,
it's the current version,
our summer version.
our summer version.
I see that there is another question, so I might answer. How can I use Bonita for BPM for an ERP system built on Oracle technology, like Oracle DBMS ABEX? If you want to connect to the ERP, I guess that you might want to connect through the database. That way you have connectors, database connectors, and we have an Oracle database connector. Otherwise, you have to check the APIs for the communication. But I guess that the easiest is to connect through the database.
Okay. So I think with that, we'll bring this session to a close. I'll say thank you to Yu-Sun and to Delphine, and hopefully we'll see some of you tomorrow, and everybody have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yu-Sun. Thank you, Mickey. Bye.